Look at Latanya.
Hello, hello.
Beautiful top, beautiful flowers. Look at all this beautiful stuff. Pull the lever, Kronk. Selena, we share a brain. I'm pretty sure that between your ability to identify my terrible jokes and my ability in shamelessness and in like evoking them, I feel like we've got some Tiffany. Look at you with the little paper frangipani in your hair. Yeah. Let me get the. Hopefully, the live transcript is working. Is that correct? Good. Tazia H. Jace. Look at all you beautiful people. Full of Shade. Johan. Yaya. Great stuff. Hannah. The ID wasn't working for me. Odd. Is it working now, Hannah?
It's working now, Caleb.
All right. Let me see. Okay. Um, so Larissa's not here because she has a car painting emergency that they had to bolt in order to their Larissa's husband went to go pick up their car from getting repainted, and thumbs down on the big old job. Larissa gives him a C. So we are Larissa-less, but that's going to be just fine. Spend the day playing visual knowledge novels for research. For research. No, I got you, Jace. No problem. I got your back. Market research. No, whatever. Um, bike ride. Oh, nice. On the beach, no less. Interesting. Yeah, you know what? Jason Johan make an interesting question. Anybody here turning their or curious about maybe making their comic a sort of an interactive experience? There's a an app you can get. It's called Spline, I believe. Spline, Twine, not
Being
Spline.
interactive, like how Homestuck is an interactive comic.
Well, no, like it's kind of like turning it into a choose your own adventure type thing. You can get an app called Twine, which will actually let you do exactly what you guys are talking about. Create a That's a really good question though. Homestuck is another one of these crazy interactive. It's a comic. Oh gosh, 20 years ago, I want to say, some early aughts. They had a lot of interactivity with the fans. No, but this is like a more of like a choose your own adventure type thing, and it lets you make either a text oriented choose your own adventure, or you can put images in there, just like a visual novel. Yeah, if you choose right or left, then this happens. You go down this way, or if you give the person the candy, then this happens. But yeah, Twine is text focused, but you can put images into it now. Or and they can. I think they can even include like dialogue now. So it's literally like a visual novel uh, engine now. Oh yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it incorporated music, games, other stuff. It's really. Oh, okay. So more like, okay, it's like 13 years. Renby. I'm gonna have to look that up. All right. Good suggestions. Hey, you know what, Jace? If you could you put Renpy, if it hasn't already been put into the Discord, so that people can check that out? That would be really, really helpful. Thank you. All right, lots to talk about today. Let me start by saying today what we're going to be doing is starting with inking. Now, inking is something that some people choose not to do. Some people uh, sometimes they prefer to use just the shapes of the colors in their comics. Pardon my bird in the background; they're going bazonkers in the other room. Um, but it's still I consider it a part of comic art because it was necessary, especially when comics first began, to create high contrast lines around things so that they could be reproduced easily. And that's the way that most artists, when they started making comics, it's what they had been trained to do. Remember, most comic artists when especially American ones, the ones that we think of in Western society, the ones that we're familiar with superheroes and noir stories and soap operas. These for the most part were European trained artists. They were trained to be landscape painters or create murals. They were trained in casing and oils. And when they came over here, it was hard to find work. So what they did was they were hired in newspapers, to create comic strips. And one of the first things that you do back then in the old traditional ways when you're creating a canvas is you use India ink to create a non-delible underdrawing that can't be obliterated. Okay, and then you can go over it with oil and all sorts of thinners and solvents, and it won't do anything because it's set. And that's why India ink became this big part of comicdom. Even today, like with manga, especially, uh, it's mostly like I want to say Eastern comics, Asian comics. That sort of art form, it's very hard for them to let go of it and go into digital because they are so set on embracing and keeping traditions. They still use old sheets of, not old sheets, new sheets of like halftone and things like that. Very old fashioned reproductive art techniques in order to create comics even today. There was somebody who posted a bunch of stuff on Junji Ito, who still does everything by dip pen. Okay, and these are guys in their 40s and stuff, but even then they're kind of considered young guys, and there are mangakas, comic artists that are, it doesn't matter what their gender, they are almost always, especially in Japan or Korea especially, they're taught to do things the traditional way, the old-fashioned way. And when you do things the old-fashioned way, it tends to apply to no matter what your medium is, digital, otherwise. We'll talk a little bit about all those things today, and we'll talk a lot about different artists that you guys can look up in order to um, sort of figure out what kind of inking, if at all, you'd like to use. Okay, so first, yeah, old school. All right, so let's take a look at, got all my inking stuff. It's all sort of taken over my desk here. Let me bring up our work from the week. And Eden, did you have anything regarding inking that you wanted to apply? Because I know you've actually have some comic background, and you know people who have had comic background before. Any opinions about that sort of thing?
Well, a lot of the people I know and who I've worked with comics were also traditional inkers, and I think it's kind of a labor of love in a sense when you do it traditionally because a lot of people get really into it. And I was even writing just now before you asked me the question, like, there's nothing wrong with traditional ink. I'm just really spoiled now by digital that um, I get upset at every mistake I make, but the kind of glory of traditional is that it can actually give it a kind of character if it's not perfect. But either way you choose is totally valid. Like, I think there's something to be said for traditional comic inking, but yeah, do it feels good to you.
Yeah, that's actually a really excellent point. Thank you, Eden. Um, Inking, when we tend to think of comic book inking, we tend to think of super sharp, razor sharp precision, and that's just not the way it works. I mean, I'll show you examples that I consider razor sharp, and but it's traditional. Yeah, it helps you commit to your line of work. If anybody here in this entire class knows about the emphasis put on traditional work, it is Raina Lensky, one of our very own. They are crazy when it comes to traditional animation. They've how Raina, give us a how long is your major project? Your super duper colossal
Um,
hand drawn animation?
so, well, before it ended up having to get spliced, stuff cut down at the end to make sure I graduated, it was 2 minutes 30 seconds, which was the maximum you could do by yourself.
By yourself. Everything
By
full
myself.
animation, every frame hand drawn, not just moving mouths, but like everything was drawn,
Oh
every bit of hair. Yeah, we
Uh,
read that and we watch it. Yeah, exactly.
no. Well, the actual finished product that was for graduating, I don't have as much of an affinity for. But I think I might have a couple of scenes that I am pretty proud of on my YouTube channel. So I will look that up real quick.
Chat, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're proud of it, we will be blown away. Remember, every second of animated footage, especially if you do it on the ones like Raina here does, it translates to 24 drawings every second. So if it's 2.5 minutes long, that's a stack like this. No joke. So yeah, please share it, Raina. We want to enjoy your opus. Okay, let's check
And
it
keep
out.
in mind that's
Please
24
drop the
frames.
link, kitty. Oh my God, Selena. Remember
It's
I said
24
that
frames if it's
crazy
one
thing
character.
about
Triple
sharing?
it if there's like 3 characters.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you had to do all that yourself.
Myself.
Yeah. You see the look of like life being bled from Raina's face here. Yeah, that's animation. But it makes you good and it makes you fast. Um, yeah, it's here. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me share my screen so we can look at just a couple of people's work here. I see a bunch of submissions, people turning in things a little late, but that's okay. You know what? Everybody here is, I want you guys to feel, okay, good with the amount of effort and the amount of progress that you guys are putting into your work. Don't feel like this stuff has to be perfect or finished, because it's not. It's not going to be. It's all this is about, step by step progress, about putting incremental bits of progress into each stage of creating a comic, and it's hard work. Okay, so here's Johan. Okay, I love this. All right, so we've got essentially a really fun little board going on here. We've got leaves flying, sigh. I mean, just in the first 2 panels, everybody reading this will be like, me. Somebody doing something they don't want to do. Nothing happens in this old place, except that when they're raking, they unearth a rune on the ground or something like that. Some sort of crazy carving. And then the main character, whose name I forget, I can't believe it. Their fun little acorn hat and everything. It's driving me crazy. Help me out here, Johan. What's the character's name again?
Autumn.
Autumn. Yeah, of course it is. I knew it. All right. So far, everything reads really well, but you did the first page on a grid. This page is also on a grid, slightly though. There's a lot of really good things to learn about this. Okay, first things first. Starts off with a really fun, explosive panel. Okay, we go from this 1 to 2, 3, 4, and then we kind of get stuck, don't we? Eden, what happened here that made you think that you may not need this panel that Johan could admit it?
Like I said, they already have the expression happening in the action of the character falling, so it just feels a little redundant, almost like a skip, if you will, where it kind of like stopped the flow of action because we repeated the same thing. But I think alternatively, you could erase that on the bottom and extend that panel of their foot slipping down and just actually giving more length to the cliff, so it we kind of almost sense the notion of, whoa, that's going to be a drop. That's just my suggestion.
So. No, it actually it ties in a little bit with here. I'm just going to move this real quick here so I can get up into my monitor. It sort of shows how the composition of your page is really dependent on the macro and the micro. In this case, you're sort of using your gutters as a guide. Every single time you interrupt a gutter with like this one of these T intersections, you guys see that? You're sort of giving, you're telling us to read from left to right or right to left, depending on, if this is depending on where this comic is meant to be, where you're from, really. So we're reading from left to right, and then suddenly we've got this a second T intersection here that kind of gives us, it trips us up a little bit. I kind of like the idea that either A, you could omit the this panel here, or you could omit the panel here and just have the character floating in space, like literally falling and not having a panel on them at all, or having the panel under be overlapped by these two, and that'll sort of give us an idea of that this one happens, then this one happens, then this one happens. Does that make sense? Tell you what, let me grab this real fast and I'll draw it for you so that I'll give you a demo. This is something, speaking of Asian comics, this is something that they do all the time. It's very tricky to sort of layer out something, more complicated compositions here, but there are ways around them. There we go. So let me grab my pen real fast. There we go. Okay, so we've got panel 1. Very easy. Panel 2. Panel 3. And I'm trying to line them up a little bit here. I know yours were a little bit more organic. Again, I'm trying to consign them to a grid. Not consign them, sorry. Align them. 4. Now this is where we get into the troublesome territory here. 5. Now what you could do is you literally could have no panel here, which is totally legit, and play around with like perspective. Like here's the opening of there's our little acorn hat. There's the hair. And we could literally have, I'm even going to pick a fun, chunky lettering font. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Something like that. Now, that's one way of doing it. You may not want to. Totally fine if you don't. Or you could do it a slightly different way. You could, this is what Eden recommended. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I'll make sure we put this one in here. 4. Sorry, that wouldn't be 4. That would be 6, really. If you like, you can actually even just make this one to sort of like establish the depth of the pit that Autumn's about to fall into. But when we have these, whenever you put these little T intersections, you need to sort of figure out where you want to place it because they can be really, really difficult. Does that make sense? Johan? Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Of course. All right. Let me save this real fast. All right. Leela and Toto. Okay, so we've got another, this is, again, a very simple grid. Oh, I love this. Okay, so we got English, then we've got Spanish, then we've got German, then we've got, it looks like kanji. Then we've got swear words. Oh, deaf? Oh, gotcha. Oh, that's really, really funny. What a beautiful. Oh my gosh, this is a lot. Great job, Tiffany. Okay, so you basically took a lot of guesswork by making this a very simple, sort of just right to left style comic. Very simple composition. So, in other words, the composition disappears. Okay, Tiffany's doing the right thing here. It's very simple. The whole idea here is that Tiffany is using repetition, and you can say, "Oh, well, but every single panel's a little bit the same." Yeah, that's been there. There are examples of stuff like this dating back to like Nemo and Slumberland. It's a way of heightening the humor through repetition. You know, every single one's a little bit different, and then they start getting just crazier and crazier. Yeah, so it's like it turns into slapstick or vaudeville. It's really, really funny. Yeah, as far as the composition goes, though, I don't really have a whole lot to say here. The fact that you're using every single one of these is about like pantomime, and I feel like that's really, really strong. Really good choices. There aren't a whole lot of room for the individual little speech bubbles, so make sure you put, if you need to. And I know you're trying not to put an emphasis on the little speech bubbles, but if you need to, make sure you give yourself enough room to do that. Oops, sorry. Wrong layer, as always. So, make sure you give yourself a little bit of room to include for people's dialogue. And that's about it, really. I feel like the other one you actually have done exceptionally well. Really great job, Tiffany. Eden, do you have anything you'd like to contribute to this?
No, I think you hit what I would have said. I really like the simplicity of it a lot because sometimes those are the funniest comics.
Exactly. It's simple is often very difficult, and but it's not just simple. It's also a little bit abstract. Like literally, these could be almost anybody in there.
Yeah, you can imprint your daily life on these people.
Yeah, this could be Tiffany. I actually would recommend you try doing something like this on the reg, doing a little autobiographical comic from the point of view of somebody who has difficulty hearing or who has, just from your own perspective. I feel like that would be a really, really fun thing for people to read. And not only that, it would be educational, it would be enlightening, and, hope against hope, really, really funny. So I feel like this is pretty great. So excellent work, Tiffany. You get a C+. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
I just wrote it in there, but the square panels remind me a lot of this manga I loved called Daioh, and they have an anime of it too, which is really funny, but kind of the point of the manga is it's just these like one shot little jokes, and Angel and Selena like it too. It's really good. It's really funny. It's about a bunch of high school girls, so it's really about nothing, but it's they're all like kind of quirky in their own ways, and it's got like weird humorous reoccurring things. It's a light comedy.
Is it? Wait, have you guys shown me this anime in class? Maybe.
I mean, someone might have mentioned it to you maybe when like the Four Comas came up, because they do have a Four Coma paneling sometimes,
Oh,
but
right.
it's kind of older now. Like, I'm not hip with the new anime. I like all the older stuff.
Yeah, you're an old
The
school weeb.
first Yeah, it first started coming out in 1999, and then I think it ran
Yeah.
until 2002 for the comic, and then the show I think came out in 2002. I don't know, can't remember, but it's really good. You should check it out.
Wow. You were like, do I see this or do I watch an Evangelion again? I don't know.
Yeah, that's literally me all the time.
Sorry, that's an anime joke. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Here we got Sade Adeshida. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is looking really, really good. Now, let's see if the composition works. Okay, so we're going to start. Let me go over here. Whoops. Let me make my arrow just a wee bit bigger. So it starts this way, and then it goes down here. Rip, rip, rip. The next morning, and that leads us down to, basically the entirety of the scene, which takes us over to the right. He's destroyed all the animals, the crops. That takes us all the way over to this side. We cannot survive this time. We cannot fight this. I'll fix this, father. Okay, now it does trip us up a little bit, because where do we go from here? Let's see here. Now, you see, if you watch the character's eyes and the composition here, immediately, and it kind of suggests that we go over to this direction. I want you to know, I know you want to help, but you can't do this alone. I will. Immediately I go back. I will. I promise. And now I'm fairly certain that's not what's intentional. Fulishide, is that correct?
Yeah, it was supposed to be I will fix this, then I will, then I promise. Like
It's meant to
those
be like
three are
that,
supposed to be, yeah,
and then like that, and then down like that.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so Eden, what would you suggest? Fulishide. To be honest with you, I feel like Fulishide's technique here. It's very hard to. Uh, these kind of little idiosyncrasies are what make comics so interesting to me. What's something that Folashide can do to keep me from tripping up like this?
Well, yeah, I think that's a good catch, because I didn't catch it at first with the eyes, but it is totally once you notice it, you're like, oh yeah, it totally jumbles it. I left a comment on this page to where, like,
That's right, you did.
at the very bottom, when like the cool grandma character like takes her eyeball out and she's like, hey, follow this, which is like, it seems like this really crazy, cool, important scene, but it feels very condensed down at the bottom. So maybe restructure the page entirely. You can still, like, the beauty of digital is you can keep these drawings and then just kind of put them into different paneling. But to answer Caleb's question, if we were going to go about this different, I would For me, I think it's also just like the break up there. I'm like pointing at the screen, like you can see what I'm seeing. But um, like the first panel is this small square, and then immediately next to it, which is where our eyes as English readers want to go, we think we should be going from left to right. So I personally would make more of a long panel up top. I'm thinking about restructuring the page though. So I have,
Well, that's the idea. Is the I don't think the fault is in the paneling. I should be able to read this the way that Full wants me to do it, or Sade, sorry. But the what I want to do is I feel like it's a blocking problem. It's where the camera is placed, or actually no, that's not a blocking problem. It's literally just a camera problem. The if we here, let me see if I can make a
well, because I guess, yeah, both panels are kind of like looking in on each other. He's faced in, the girl or the kid crying is faced in.
okay. So here is the farmer is looking down. He's sad. We cannot survive this. Now, if we brought his eyes down, or maybe brought something to lure us down to the bottom of the page, and then maybe suggested. Oh, I really I love the idea of the the bubble being here. We've got our young lad, our kid here who is about ready to swear an oath to fix this problem.
Oh, so would you then flip the crying heads?
Yeah, I would probably be like, I will fix this, father. I will. I would probably, have him maybe instead of having him look down, I would have him like looking up,
Yeah, that helps.
something like that, and be like, I will, I'll fix this. There's his little line of dialogue. Here's his dad's hand. And then maybe one little thing, and then suddenly, I promise. Again, the repetition to sort of help us. Maybe he dips his head down just a tiny bit. Now it looks like Sade. I hope am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, it's Shade.
Shade. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to establish the idea that he's like trying hard not to cry, and then at the very end he looks straight at us, or rather straight at the camera, I should say. And maybe his dad like takes a step back. I'm sorry about this. Really.
You could even,
Here. What's up?
with the these are all just suggestions. The last panel, instead of him looking straight at us, oh wow, you're going for like an anime scream.
Pretty much, yeah.
I was gonna say you could like almost copy and paste that head right above and put it below and just have the eyes opening, like he's determined, like looking forward. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of like closed in that panel. So he's like, I will. And then he's like, I promise, with his eyes open.
Oh, actually, we could even like zoom in.
Yeah, Raina was saying a little zoom in.
Ryan Nieto. Sorry, I haven't looked at the.
Yeah, I was skeptical of the zoom in, but I like it. But I think I'm always anxious that I'm getting too close in on my
No,
panels.
he's like got thunderbolts behind him and stuff. He's like, vengeance.
Yeah, I think that works
Mine.
really well.
Because you killed my cow. And then yeah, then we got the exterior of the hut. You're right. But I actually think instead of doing, I think Eden's right. I think it's a bit of a jump.
I just feel
Maybe you
like
could say like that evening or something like that, and have him like, or have the child. I don't even know if what they identify as. It doesn't really matter. They're sneaking out with like a stick or a gun or something like that, and then suddenly. Now it looks like have they gone to visit their elder here? Is that
Yeah.
okay? Well, you could do that if you wanted to. I think that's great. But it does seem like I think Eden's right. It's a bit of a jump. Another solution might be, and this is just me. You could have them sneaking out, and then suddenly they're like stopped in their tracks.
oh, so that's not the grandma's house?
No, well, like I thought it was the grandma's house, but to be honest with you, I was thinking that maybe they are, as they go through the woods or through.
Yeah, I think an establishing shot or like the character leaving the dad scene to meet the new character, just because both scenes seem really important, and the next scene you're setting up for with the eyeball seems super rad. Like that would just be a good illustrative page to have.
Yeah.
Now this is just, well, I don't know. The more I look at it, no, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. We have to establish that it's a cute old nana, and then suddenly we look down and we look up, and then she's got the eyeball, and maybe the kid didn't even know that her eyeball was like crazy or glass or magic or whatever. He's just like, Nana, where's your eyeball? And she's like, follow it. Actually, you know what? It wouldn't be the emphasis on them. It would be like this. It'd be like, whoa. Floaty eye. Like so. And the eye is like giving off all this light. And all we see is this turret going, follow it. You know what? Even that looks kind of lame. Let me see here. What's a better way of doing it? I'm sorry, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this. I just really want to see if I can focus on making this really cool, iconic moment. and utter, like just totally remove the grandma from the last part and literally just turn her into a disembodied voice. Follow it, and then off it goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of different ways I really like to do it. The idea is to the pacing here, it does feel a little bit rushed. Like, oh, maybe at the beginning we need to have him, or the youth, I should say, standing in the doorway of the elder's hut, going, I need help. And they're like, you've come to the right place. Take my eye. And they're like, no, I mean, like, really, I need help. And 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 it starts glowing. They're like, oh, so okay. I thought you were going to give me like a dream vision or something like that. I didn't know your eyeball was literally going to like float and stuff. Man, I just drew all over this page. I am so sorry.
No, it looks great.
All right. Well, does this make sense though? It's
Yeah, it does.
It's a lot of playing around with the pacing and like try to when you can try to zoom in a little bit or take advantage of where the camera is located. Here, I'll save it for you. Feel free to just exactly what Eden said. These are all suggestions. Feel free to take what you want, throw everything else away, just like just like with anything else. It's this is your story, so make sure all I'm trying to do is make it clear. I'm not trying to move things around or tell it a different way or anything like that. All I'm trying to do is see if I picked this up, how can I without any bias try to make it as clear as possible. What would I do? And that's literally it. Anyway, so take this with a grain of salt, and let me know if there's any other questions or if this helps at all. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Caleb.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sade, and thank you for being patient with me. All right. It is 3:45. We need to get this show on the road. I love this is the part of the of making comics that is so incredibly rewarding to me. It's like the dissection, the analysis, but at the same time, you have to sort of keep a distance from it. Let me stop sharing my screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right, you have to have a certain dispassionate feeling when you're doing comics. Julia, Angel, everybody's here. Sarah, look at all the Taja, but you've been here since the beginning. It's just wonderful to see everybody's faces. All right. So yeah, I feel like one of the things that one of the people that we're going to talk about today is this French artist by the name of Jean Giraud. But you probably are more familiar with Jean Giraud under the name Moebius or Mobius. They were probably one of the greatest European artists of the last part of the 20th century, especially when it comes to conceptual work and comics. Moebius, yes, they are, and don't at me if I mispronounce the name wrong. I've heard it at least 4 different ways. They came out with this really wonderful list of 18 different hints for people to create when they're creating art. And one of the very first thing that Moebius said is when you're creating art, when you draw, you have to sort of cleanse yourself of deep feelings like hate or happiness, even ambition, stuff like that. It's literally, Angel, you do not have to worry about anything like that. you guys are great. Yeah, if you did not submit this week, you're under the gun for next week. That's totally fine. I just want to be able to see some sort of progress, even if it's just a single page, um, to sort of like help you, uh, figure out what kind of progress you feel happy with. Thank you very much, Jace. Put it into the folder too. I want to see it. Um, because to go back to what I was saying, when you cleanse yourself of deep feelings, when you cleanse yourself and it's just you and your relationship with the media that you're working on, it suddenly becomes just about you and your relationship to art. Um, you have to educate your hand. You have to make it work for you. When you're penciling and when you're inking, whenever you're creating things like this, a lot of people tend to get very, very focused on details, and that's not what it's about. Same thing when it comes to inking. I'm going to show you a bunch of art that you'll find feels really, really like razor precise. Try not to think of it that way. Think of it instead as the person trying to paint with very limited media, with an extremely limited set of tools. Okay, the person is literally trying to record light, color, value using only black and white. And they get to decide how disciplined they are, okay, through how educated their hand is. Okay, if you produce drawings that are too quick or too loose, besides making mistakes, you run the risk of creating entity without soul or spirit. If you work too hard or get focused on precision and perfection and detail, then the exact opposite can happen. Okay, you literally you produce something that has a lot of spirit but no unity. Yeah, Jace, absolutely. Eden is 100% correct. It doesn't matter. I just want to see a little bit of progress. Even if you just put in one more panel, just one. Even if it's just a script and you just want to start doing some doodles. This is where the beginning would be, and this is where the end would be. Totally fine. All right. Everybody's in different stages of the game. All right. I just want to be. All I want you guys to do is say, I had it. I made an effort. That's all. Okay. Let me see here. I'm going to bring out. Oh man, I'm going to bring out some toys because we can't really talk about inking without talking about the traditional stuff. Here we go. Now, when it comes to, Eden, it was, it was your demon self-insert character. And
it's still Whip and Dandy, which
it's
is
Whip and
kind
Dandy,
of
but they were being chased by dog. Oh no, Whip was chasing a dog because they stole their sandwich.
Yes. Well, okay. I guess that was the first one, but I'm talking about like comic pages, which was like her antagonizing a teenage boy.
Oh, that's right. In again, sandwich shop. What is up with sandwiches and you?
I like them.
That's who doesn't though.
But I changed it now to a traditional like Mexican folk art themed cafe because I thought that would be fun to design, and it was. So
nice. All right, I'm going to share my thing here, but first I'm going to show you guys some art from a particularly beautiful and fastidious inker that I really enjoy, named Brian Stelfreeze. There are gobs and gobs of inkers that we could talk about. In the the resource folder, I've put in the name of at least a dozen. And a Angel, oh no, what happened? I know you injured your hand. Oh no, are you going to bolt? Just please stay. So at the very least, we can talk about that stuff.
She's gonna stay. She's gonna stay.
I mean, if you leave, you can't be a nerd with me, and I need everyone here to be nerds with me. Okay, so let's talk about. I'm going to share my resources. Okay. Now, Julia, you weren't here when we were talking about this. We're talking all about inking today. If inking isn't your thing, And I know that you like to sort of go straight from pencils to watercolor. That's totally great. One of my favorite artists right now is Alex Alice, who kind of switches back and forth. Here, I'll put their name into the chat here. They are also French. Everybody I love is either like from South America or France.
Well, that's because they're all magical artists over
They
there.
are all magic.
When
Everybody
I was
French or
at,
South American is magic.
yeah, when I was at CTN, like there was a ton of South American artists there, and every time they like opened their book, I was like, oh, I'll just find a different career. It's okay.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I look at my hands and go, you have failed me. You know, it's like you can't help but feel like, oh, well, I had a good run. See you guys. But yeah, it's but the first thing they would say is, no, I am terrible. I am garbage, garbage. That's my French accent. Who was here last time that said my French accent was perfect? I really want them to come back.
They're not allowed back.
They're not. Apparently, they yeeted themselves right out the class. So they heard that and they're like, never again. Okay. Let's talk about inkers. Nope, that's not the thing I wanted to share. It's good, but it's not the thing I wanted to share. I wanted to share this thing. Where is it? Do. Oh, sure. Yeah, okay, fine. It's in the same thing as the Discord that I was dorking at. Okay, here are the inkers that are currently residing in your Class 10 Comics Inking resource folder. All right, these are all super dynamite people. All right, we've got ladies, we've got guys, we've got people that are very young, we got people that are ancient. One of my favorites, we're going to focus on two today. Brian Stelfreeze. Oh no, where's my picture of Brian Stelfreeze? He's not in here. Oh, no, there he is. That's Brian. Biggest sweetheart in the world. So gosh darn great. With this little picture of Batman there. Little picture of Batman. When he does inking, he recognizes that he's literally trying to paint with just black. All he's doing is just recording shadow. That's it. His strokes are razor sharp and super precise because that's the way he sees things. That's just his gift. Okay, this is his fantastic Supergirl. This is this epic, beautiful cover for Black Panther that he and Ta-Nehisi Coates did. It's probably one of the best comics to come out in like the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, especially regarding Black Panther, that and Tom King's Vision. But yeah, it's super. I mean, but look at these lines here. Now, normally he does digital stuff because he's just like as you can tell, he's all about like selecting big areas, filling them with black, being razor sharp. But as you can see, he is no slouch when it comes to traditional stuff either. He's a beast. And it kind of, if you look at the feathering, especially these beautiful hatch marks. I mean, you see a lot of these really sharp tapers, like they taper like needles, and you can see a lot of that happening across his work. This is one of the Spider-Man characters, that's Silk. I think he's got another Star Wars in here. You can sort of see the same thing going on up here. These beautiful razor sharp points. But you also see them here. Not so much in this cover, more in the work that I'm about to show you here. It is where's my thing? Sorry, those are my kids. There we are. Okay, so this is this the selection of full-sized comic pages that came out, I want to say about 7 years ago, like 2013, from Boom Studios, and it's a vampire story that Brian did called Daymen. And it's literally all about the people who help vampires go about their day-to-day business while they're sleeping. Okay, as you can tell, it's kind of big. It's 11 by 17 exactly. These are the kind of sizes that most comic artists work with. They always do things about 150% bigger than when they're doing it full size than the actual printed page. And if you go in here, you can see that he does fill his blacks quite a bit, but more often than not, he loves to sort of like stagger them. That's mainly something he picked just for this book. He likes to put in these really beautiful sort of like action lines whenever he's filling in. He likes to have these little beautiful, tiny little spots of white showing in. You know, here as well, here. Look at the way he staggers the proximity of the subject to the camera. It's like, oh my God, it's so, so good. It's almost like abstract and you know, arabesque when he starts dealing with things like this. It's really, really beautiful and super inspiring. Now this book right here, it was, I don't think Boom Studios is making these anymore. You can try and find them on like eBay. But what I would recommend you guys doing is going online and just like seeing if you can find your own favorite artist or inker, because they're all going to be so crazy different. Okay, so we've got Brian here, who is really, really razor sharp, as you can see, extremely precise. And he's doing most of this digitally. I would say probably with Manga Studio or Clip Studio. Like I said, this is about 7 years old. So it's, you know, he does a lot of different things, but just like looking at the tapering on some of these lines, the way that they end in these razor sharp points. I mean, you could tell it at, you know, a mile away practically that this was Brian Stelfreeze. Okay. Now let's look at a very different artist. Now this one is another one of my faves. I've got so many faves, it's kind of ridiculous. Her name is Bilki Evely. Yeah, that was a special comic. That was literally, I found that at Comic-Con in San Diego. It was like 10 bucks. It was ridiculously cheap. They were just trying to see if if there was a market for it. And they just, I don't know, for some reason they stopped doing it. Yeah, Bilki Evely.
Can you tell me how to spell both of these artists' names, or will you
I'll
write
put
both
them
of them in
right
the
in
chat?
there for you. Okay, so the first one is Brian Stelfreeze. Like I said, these guys they have a folder in the class resources. It's under Inkers, and then they have named folders. There's over a dozen in there. And then this one is Bilki Evely. Now, Bilki Evely is from Brazil. It's 4 o'clock. Oop, this is the wrong one here. Bilki Evely is also very, you know, she's also very detail oriented. She only does traditional stuff, only. And she only uses brush, no pen. Okay, and as you can tell, she's got really super tapered lines, all this kind of beautiful stuff. She doesn't mind letting the texture of the paper show through. She likes using a kind of a dry brush. This is what it looks like when it's been colored. doesn't it make you mad? Doesn't it make you just like you're just that people like this exist that are not
It,
only so sweet and so smart.
it doesn't make me mad. It just makes me, yeah, in awe. It's
Yeah,
like, how'd you know you were gonna be
teach
really
me.
good at that?
Yeah, exactly. And this is her. So it's like not only that, but she's super cute and really fun to listen to. Really, she's just and she uses like literally the same brush for literally everything. See this crazy little line right here? That came out of that. See these giant chonkin shade things? That came out of that. Okay. Yeah. See Angel, like you could see Angel's ghost leave their body. And that's me. Chonkin. Yeah.
I just like, I just don't have a steady hand.
Well, the thing is that this comes from that thing I mentioned before. You have an educated hand. It literally comes from mileage. That's it. She still works the same way everybody else does. You know, she'll put the outlines down first, and then she'll figure out, okay, this line is gonna this area of Dick Grayson's shoulder is going to be in shadow, so that's going to get a little thicker. What about the background? Also brush or just pencil? Oh, that's it hasn't been painted yet. That's just pencil. That's also her, by the way. Yeah, she doesn't chug coffee all day. I don't know. Maybe they do. You go to their Instagram. Go to Bilky Evely's Twitter. She'll show you like she rules her edges, but every once in a while she'll like do like a straight edge freehand, and you're like chewing your fingernails down to the knuckles. You're like, don't do it, don't do it. You're gonna mess up. And she's like, no, I'm not. And she freaking Jedi's the crap out of that comic page. Um, yeah, a lot of people find that. A lot of people discovered that it's actually faster with digital than it is with, with traditional than it is with digital, because digital encourages you to become, to redo things. Whereas if you do it this way, you have to make peace with the fact that it's going to be imperfect.
Does she color with the ink? What does she color with? Do you know?
She doesn't color. She only
Okay,
does
she's
pencil
just
and
the
ink.
inker.
Right now, she's doing Supergirl, but she's probably most famous for her book, The Dreaming, which is co-written. It was based off of a Neil Gaiman comic, which is what most of that was for. All right, so we've still got a little bit of time left. It looked like Texture Digital Ink. Yes, it was. I believe that was Jordi Belair who did the digital coloring on that. Now, let me see here. I'm going to show you some of my inking tools. All right, so first off, a lot of times I do inking digitally. So, it's either Photoshop or, you know, Procreate, something like that. Or I use pen. There are a number of artists that use a lot of pens like Tony Di Terlizzi or a lot of the ones that are actually in the Inkers folder here. Joe Sutphin, who uses just Crowquill. Okay, and it, like I said, it depends on what kind of ink you want to use. Some people would swear by the Japanese G pen, which is this thing, based off of basically, school dipping pens. It's very flexible. It's this beautiful sort of like middle of the road. So those are my pens. We also have a variety of different brushes. They tend to be, on the thin side. And then, of course, we've got these beauties. We've got Japanese markers. We've got Pentels of various thicknesses. You can go on JetPens, which is a Japanese website, or it's not a Japanese website. It's a a site where you can purchase Japanese brush pens and things like that that they use for handwriting all the time, or that they use for comics all the time, manga, like I said. Okay. Zebra, Micron, Kuretake, Pentel, Pilot. The brushes typically are, the middle of the road, like Richardson's, Connoisseurs, Raphael's. For the most part, they tend to be Sables. And then we've got Hunts and what's the other one? Tachikawa for dip pens. Okay, but let's. Oh yeah, and I could go on and on and on and on. Oh, the tan one, like this one, that's a Kuretake. It's a felt tip brush pen. The other one has nylon bristles, so it actually is like a brush. All right, let's not worry about any of that. The real thing that I want you guys to look at, and this is something that anybody can get. You want to start inking? Get yourself one of those. Okay, see these cheapo little water brushes? Is there anybody here? Yes, Angel, yes. I think you can pretty much find them almost anywhere on any continent. They are literally like $1.99. All right. Some of these brushes, some of these pens were upwards of like $40 easily. You don't need it. All right. If you want to learn how to ink, all you need is something like this. And here's why. Okay. So what you do is you get a little wet. But you don't fill anything up with it at all. You leave it dry. Why is that? Because you can use the bristles just like a normal brush. I'm going to grab my light board here. I have 20 minutes, plenty of time to ruin this inking. This is my light board. All right, you do not need a light board. If you would like to, sorry if there's any sort of moiring. Is this bothering anybody's eyeballs? Anybody? Nah, it's cool. All right, everybody seems to be cool with it. Here's what we're going to do. If you're interested in doing traditional inking, get yourself one of these and a little box, a little jar of decent black ink. I like Deleter. It's cheap and it's super great. It turns into acrylic paint when you're done with it. So it's a lot like India ink. India ink is also extremely, extremely good. It becomes solid. Deleter, like I'm going to hit the delete key. When you are working, make sure you have like a tissue or a paper towel. Just realized I didn't have one. Deleter's just a brand. To be honest with you, India ink is its own basic thing. It's made out of, it has resin in it, like pine bark resin, which is why it becomes so hard and it's impossible to wash off. Whoops. Once you're finished. Okay, so now this is taped on here. You're probably going to want to spin it around a little bit when you're working. All right, so let's move this out of the way. I'm going to get as close to this as I can. Pardon me for mucking up anybody's eyeballs. What I love about this particular light board, though, is I can dim it. So I can take it down a notch, like so. So you guys can see a little bit better of what I'm doing. Now, what you'd want to do with inking, especially when you're doing brush, is you want to pull it. Figure out where the light's coming from. Remember, you're not drawing with ink. You're not just doing. Your idea here isn't to be perfect. Your idea here is to try and paint. So think about how you would treat it if you were, using like oils or watercolor. And you almost always want to try and pull the brush like so. Get those nice long lines. So quick little demo on how I do most of my inking traditionally. But honestly, it's all about what you have with you. If you want to go down to the park and ink, bring a pen with you. If you want to, or a marker, something like that. The paper is Bristol, yes. The paper is Bristol. Bristol is a heavyweight. This tends to be, this is a smooth Bristol. It is therapeutic. It's meditative because the idea is, remember, whenever you're creating artwork, if you want it to be, if you want to have a good approach to it, if you want to have a good relationship with it, you have to sort of remove, emotion, crankiness, all that rubbish, frustration. Give yourself a present before you ink. Give yourself if you like coffee, give yourself a cup of coffee. Give yourself a 10-minute snooze in your favorite chair. Be at peace. Listen to a meditative app. In order to figure out what you need to do to remove yourself. So it's just you, your hand, and the relationship you've got with your drawing. Fear. No fear. There is no fear. Fear is the mind killer. I can't wait for Dune to come out. It's going to be a really, really fun movie. Now, if you're of a certain mind, you're like, where do I begin? And you're not entirely sure where, begin with the outline. I'll make a slight adjustment here and do that. Let me pull this back just a hair. Hernanda is 100% correct. Just take a day. This page that I'm inking right here is available for you guys to ink if you want to. I made it a JPEG and I put it into the reference or resource folder. so that you can practice on it to your heart's content before you decide to commit to any sort of inking on your own work. As you can see, it's possible to get quite a lot of personality into your inked lines. Oh, I'm not, yeah, I'm not refilling anything. I'm just dipping it like I would any brush. But there's a method to my madness. There's a reason why I like these brushes. Might need to turn this up just a hair. And I'll show you why I like it in about, hopefully, a little under 10 minutes here.
You're at 420, Caleb, just so you know.
Sick. Oh, Tiffany thanked me. What do you thank me for? Just for being cool, for being hilarious. I got you. As you can sort of see as I go, my confidence is building a little bit. You can see that.
So people ask, so is this week the focus to ink the pages?
Yeah, well, the idea, even if you don't want to ink it, what I want you guys to do is think of a way that you can incorporate some sort of contrast to your panels. Think about, if, like, for example, Julia goes straight from pencils to watercolor, and that's cool. Uh, Alex Alice, who I mentioned before, likes to do very similar work, especially lately. His work tends to go straight from pencils to watercolor, but he uses colored pencils. He uses, or he'll use like lamp black, which is actually a very very dark blue um, watercolor.
Caleb, Tiffany would like to say that she said, thank you for putting your image in the resources folder so we can ink it.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I was not paying attention.
No. There was a miscommunication with the translation. It was on one today.
Oh, my bad. Well, Tiffany, you are super duper welcome. What I love when you look online for like people's brush sets and what did you ink that with, what brush is that, which is always my favorite question that people ask. What I love, especially lately, people are getting into these very sort of they call they're part of like these big brush sets that are called like retro or um, debaser or anything that sort of like makes it look like it's the tiny little imperfections that give traditional work its character. And I got to tell you, it's so cool. It's hilarious, but it's because I use them. But it's so cool because um, people are when they ink the idea of being perfect or creating a flawless line isn't the end goal. The idea is to try and create something that looks unique, that looks natural or organic, something that can't be replicated by a computer. It's why that's why a lot of watercolorists actually use digital watercolor a lot these days, even though they're super great at doing traditional watercolor. If they're away from home and they got their iPad, then they'll just bust that out. And there's nothing illegitimate or wrong about any of that. Here we go. Can I get those dinky little super fine strokes to make it look like his face? I just love that the current style in in digital art is to make it look traditional, just faster. So you don't have to take a whole giant art bin with you wherever you go.
How long does it take for the ink to dry on the Bristol, would you say, without smudging it?
The stuff on the right side is already dry. Uh, this deleter stuff works really, really fast. It's a very fast drying ink, but some inks work faster than others. It depends on how thick the solution is. A lot of people, myself included, if you're using stuff like, say, Speedball, Speedball tends to dry a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is you can take a a bit of Speedball, like half a syringe worth, and take a syringe worth of like just a couple drops of Windex or some sort of solvent like that, and pop it in there. It won't clog your brush or your pen nearly as fast, and B, it'll dry a lot faster. And Windex actually works really, really well. You can also use it as a cleaner for your nibs, that's your pens, or if you mess up your brushes, or especially if it's a vinyl one like this. Sorry, not vinyl, nylon.
The deleter ink is waterproof?
That is correct.
Okay,
Most
that's
India ink is. I typically want to only buy ink that's waterproof because I love going over it with watercolors or watercolor pencils. And here comes the painty parts. Like I'm trying to go in here so I can mess up all these lovely lines by tacking in some Spotted blacks. I've got 3 minutes left.
Julia asks, is your image below pencils? I'm looking at it and the line
It
looks
is
very
yes,
refined.
it is pencils. Just pencils. Actually, what I've got here is a blow up. This is 1-to-1 scale of the pencils, and you can see it's kind of crappy quality, but there's enough there to sort of give me an idea of where I want to go. Okay, so
Selena just says, gosh, I love art.
gosh, I love art. Hopefully, what I want you guys to do, even if you feel like, I just don't have the time to do a whole comic, or I don't have the wherewithal to do what he's asking me, that's totally fine. Do what you can, but try to make yourself uncomfortable. Do yourself a favor and try and accomplish something that you didn't know you could do just by, just try something out that you've never done before. Go out of your comfort zone, if only just to experiment. Take some risks. Make yourself uncomfortable. For me, for old Caleb.
But also don't drive yourself too crazy.
No, don't drive yourself crazy, but try and see if you can't figure out a way to try something new. You don't have to drive yourself crazy, but just ink one panel just to see what it looks like. You might make friends with it. You might be say, hey, Mr. Ink, you're not as crazy and as scary as I thought you were.
So just to
And Mr. Ink
reiterate,
isn't real because he only exists in your mind, but you get the idea. Sorry, what's that?
oh no, it's fine. Just to reiterate, since it's 4:30, the goal is to make contrast. You don't have to use ink if you're not that kind of person.
Right.
But make some
Don't have to use
contrast.
ink, but try and create some sort of painty contrast using a media that you feel, that you feel a kinship with. And if you have never done it before, try it. You might actually realize that you kind of dig it. And seriously, here's the other reason why I love this so much. When it comes time to wash your brush, take the tip off. Load it up with water.
Um,
And then you flush it out. And
Caleb,
it like literally did nothing. Yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you are great.
Awkward
Stop sharing.
Zoom is. Jace would like to know if you will put the brush names that you like and use in the Discord.
You got yes. Be prepared. It will be quite a shopping list. But literally, what I mentioned before, it's not about your tools. It's about what you like. Find a relationship with what you create. This is literally like the cheapest option you can find. You can buy it in a kid's watercolor set. That you can buy 3 of these for less than $5 in America. All right. So in Britain, it literally will be like £2, £1 probably, for a couple of them. They're easy to find. You can go to any arts and crafts store. This one, I don't know who makes this one. It's probably a Pentel, maybe. Regardless, they're easy to find. Find something that is sharp enough that you feel like, you know what, I can work with that. That's it. Okay. And try and do it. Yeah, there are cheaper knockoffs. That one's like $8 to $10. Yikes. Okay. There are totally cheaper knockoffs. I've got a whole kit of them. There are big ones. There are small ones. But the thing is, they're all the same brush. They're all nylon bristle. They all come to a pretty razor sharp point. And if you treat them nicely, they'll last you for, I don't know, at least a couple of weeks if you use it every day. And once you're done with them, you can recycle them because they're nylon. Okay, and it's yeah, the only thing, yeah, the more traditional brushes like the Sables can last a lot longer if you know how to take care of them. These guys like require conditioning and stuff. They
Yeah, I was
require
like,
special
if you
soaps.
take
I'm
care
not
of
joking.
them.
You need to shampoo these little buggers, but they're
Never wash them in hot water, though. It's your
don't do
art
that.
teacher advice. No
Listen to
hot
Julia.
water for brushes that melts the glue.
Yeah, don't do it. Um, you want to use a special soap for brushes. This is Studio Soap. We'll talk more about this sort of stuff next time if you want, or hit me up in the Discord. Play some, yeah. Get you got Artiza ones that are pretty cheap. Awesome! I love to hear about cheap art supplies. Anyway, have some great time. Experiment, make a mess, and all you need is just a little bit of water and a paper towel, or some craft paper or something that you can use to tidy up. And to be honest with you, this don't look that bad. Okay, so there we go. Have some fun with it. All right, and look up some of the artists that we talked about. Julia, oh, never apologize for becoming an art teacher in the middle of my lectures. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions? Hope you enjoyed the demo. I certainly did. I know it's a little boring, and I hope I didn't put too many of you to sleep.
It's not boring, Caleb.
But you guys were a delight as always. And I will, if you have questions for me, or if you feel like if you feel disheartened because you're running behind or whatever, don't worry about that. That's not making a finished product is not what this class is about. Okay, only working on something that you could make progress on. Okay,
Yeah,
just do
these
something,
aren't.
do a little bit more than you did last week. That's it. Try and push yourself. That's all. Even if it's just one little panel, do some drawing. All right, Tasha, Hannah, Tiffany, all y'all, Sarah, Selena. I can't even. Yes, you can. I can't even. You guys are amazing. Joy, Hernanda, you guys are my superheroes. Keep up the great work, and I will see you guys next week.
I'm gonna end the recording.